Outside Memphis, Tennessee, there is a building that uses more electricity than the entire city around it was built to spare. One building, drawing more power than some American cities. It went up in 122 days. It is not a factory in the old sense. Nothing comes out of the loading dock. What it makes out of electricity. What it leaves behind is heat. This year, 4 companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta, plan to spend around $725 billion, most of it on buildings like this one. That is their own guidance, up 77% in a single year. For the first time in American history, more money is going into building data centers than office buildings. Almost none of this was put to a vote, and in 2026, the country noticed. This is the physical cost of artificial intelligence, counted both ways. Start with the money, because the money is the easiest part to prove. The United States Census counts construction. As of April, data center construction was running at $50.7 billion a year. All office construction combined, $43.8 billion. 2 years ago, the data center number was $28 billion. The Department of Energy's Berkeley National Laboratory keeps the meter on what these buildings consume. In 2014, American data centers used 58 terawatt-hours of electricity. By 2024, 192, which is about 4.7% of all power in the country. Berkeley's latest projection for 2030 lands between 520 and 840 terawatt-hours. Take the middle of that range and it is nearly 12% of the entire American grid for one industry. Roughly half of all growth in US electricity demand this decade traces back to these buildings. And they are being raised at a speed the industry has never seen. In Ohio, Meta put server halls inside tents, 5 of them, each the size of a city block, because tents go up in half the time. In Louisiana, a single campus will run 5 miles end to end. Mark Zuckerberg published the comparison himself. Its footprint laid over Manhattan. Speed is a strategy. Speed is also where the trouble starts. It helps to know what one of these things actually is. Strip the branding and a hyperscale AI campus is 4 systems, chips, hundreds of thousands of graphics processors, the machines that train and run the models, power, substations and feeder lines sized like a city's because the chips never sleep. Cooling, because every watt that goes in comes back out as heat, and the heat has to go somewhere, into water or into air. And under all of it, thousands of acres of concrete. The unit that matters is the gigawatt. 1 gigawatt is roughly the output of a large nuclear reactor. Enough for about 800,000 homes. The newest campuses are designed for 1 to 5 gigawatts each. 5 gigawatts is more electricity than every home in Louisiana combined. That is the design target for one campus in one parish in one state. Nothing about the machine is secret. The question the rest of this film asks is simpler. When a machine this size lands next to a neighborhood, what actually happens on the meters and in the court records? There is one place where all of it exists in public, so we go there. In June 2024, Elon Musk's AI company, xAI, took over a shuttered Electrolux factory in South Memphis, a square feet that once made ovens. In 122 days, it was training the company's model, Grok. The company called it Colossus, and by any engineering measure, the name was earned. It came online faster than anyone in the industry believed possible, and it kept growing. Industry and court filings put it past 500,000 GPUs across 2 sites by this January, with a stated ambition of 2 gigawatts. The local utility could deliver 150 megawatts. The machine wanted more, so the company brought its own power plant, piece by piece. What follows is from permit records and court filings. It lands in a neighborhood called Boxtown, historically black South Memphis, already ringed by an oil refinery, a steel mill, and a gas plant. Federal data puts its cancer risk at 4 times the national average. That was before the turbines. The sequence by the record, beginning in June 2024. xAI installed roughly 35 mobile gas turbines at the first site without air permits. In July 2025, the county health department granted permits for 15 of them. Across the state line in Mississippi, at the second site, environmental groups counted 27 more unpermitted turbines, then 33. The NAACP's federal complaint calculates their potential output at 2,508 tons of nitrogen oxides a year, which would make one AI campus the largest source of smog-forming pollution in a metro area that already fails federal ozone standards. In April 2026, the NAACP sued under the Clean Air Act. The following month, it asked the judge for an emergency halt. Then the Department of Justice intervened on xAI's side, arguing the facility matters to national security. The case is still open. The other side of this ledger is real, and it is on the record too. The Chamber of Commerce counts around 500 jobs pledged. The mayor backed the project. And xAI broke ground on an $80 million water recycling plant for the city, then paused it until its second data center is finished, with a restart promised by early next year. Both facts are true at once. That is Memphis. Under Memphis sits some of the best drinking water in America, the Memphis Sand Aquifer. Utility meters show the campus pumping 812,000 gallons a day from it. In 1 month, it bought 25 million more gallons from the city. Projections for the expanded site run from 1 to 5 million gallons a day. Some advocates say more. The company disputes the highest numbers. The meter readings are not disputed. 800 miles east, in Newton County, Georgia, the water story got a face. After Meta began construction next to their properties, neighbors' private wells turned brown. Families photographed sediment in bathtubs, replaced dead appliances, hauled drinking water in jugs. In May, a congresswoman held jars of that water up at a congressional hearing. The EPA promised an investigation within the week. Meta denies its construction caused it and has paid for some neighbors' new wells anyway. The county's own numbers explain the fear. The Meta campus uses about 10% of the county's water supply. 9 more companies applied to build there. Some asked for up to 6 million gallons a day, more than the entire county currently uses. The county froze all new data center approvals until October. Here the film owes you the other direction, because the internet's favorite water statistic is also the most contested one. You may have heard that every AI answer costs a bottle of water. The research behind that, from the University of California, Riverside, put it at roughly half a liter for every 10 to 50 responses, counting the power plants upstream. Google later measured its own median query at 1/4 of a milliliter, 5 drops counted narrowly. The two numbers measure different things, and each is honest inside its own boundary. Nationally, the scale is smaller than the outrage suggests. All American data centers together drink about 1/10 of what golf courses do, and agriculture uses more in a day than data centers use in a year. But a national average never shows up at anyone's tap. The gallons concentrate in one aquifer, one county, one set of wells, faster than anyone planned for. That concentration is the story, and it is why the honest version is still alarming. The water bill arrives at specific houses. The power bill arrives at everyone's. The largest grid in America, PJM, runs 13 states. At its capacity auction, the market that pays power plants to exist, the price went from $28.92 per megawatt day to $329.17 in 2 years, more than 10 times over. Independent analyses attribute about 63% of that jump to data center demand, $9.3 billion spread onto ordinary electric bills. On a real bill, that is about $21 a month more in Washington, the 600th, 18 in Western Maryland, 16 in Ohio. In Virginia, the utility's forecast for data center load by 2037 has more than tripled since 2022. In Louisiana, the utility is building 10 gas plants, tripled from the original 3, to feed Meta's 5-gigawatt Hyperion campus. Meta has agreed to cover their revenue for 15 years. The plants will run for more than 30. Consumer groups at the Utility Commission are asking the obvious question, who pays the back half? And in Abilene, Texas, the money question is at its sharpest. The first campus of OpenAI's $500 billion Stargate program rose there on an 85% property tax abatement. 5,000 workers are on site this year. The contracts require just 357 permanent jobs once construction ends. Average rent in Abilene rose more than $1,000 in a year. The company points out, correctly, that it pledged hundreds of millions toward transmission and that its cooling is a sealed loop filled once. All of that is on the record together. If the film stopped here, it would be a prosecution. It should not. 4 things belong on the other side, at full weight. First, the tax money is real, and in some towns it built the place. Quincy, Washington, a farm town that said yes to data centers 20 years ago, watched its property tax base grow more than 12-fold. It built a new high school, a hospital, a fire station, and cut its tax rate by 2/3. In Loudoun County, Virginia, data centers now carry about half the property tax base. By the industry's own math, that is roughly $5,800 a year that each homeowner does not pay. Second, the build-out is financing power plants America had stopped building. Microsoft's contract is restarting the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant. Amazon is backing small modular reactors. Google signed for advanced geothermal and next-generation nuclear. Measured in dollars, this is the largest private investment in firm clean power the country has seen, and data centers are the reason it exists. Third, the machines are getting better fast. The overhead energy a Google data center wastes per unit of computing is about 1/10 of what the industry wasted 15 years ago. Chips double their efficiency every couple of years. But here economics plays its oldest trick, the Jevons paradox. Make computing cheaper per unit, and the world buys so much more of it that the total still climbs. Total use rose 17% last year, in the most efficient year the industry has ever had. Fourth, some of the panic is arithmetic that has not been audited. In Texas, developers have requested 226 gigawatts of future grid connections, 4 times last year's number, and regulators believe much of it is the same project asking in 5 places. In Ohio, the utility was caught double counting data center demand in its forecasts. America's utilities over-forecast demand in the 1970s too, and ratepayers spent decades paying for the overbuild. Some of what looks like a tidal wave is paperwork. Now put the whole year together. In January, Pew found 75% of Americans had heard about data centers, and the ones who had were 4-to-1 negative on the environment. By March, Gallup measured 71% of Americans opposed to a data center near their own home, a higher refusal rate than a nuclear plant gets. Then the opposition stopped being a poll and became procedure. By this spring, dozens of counties and towns across at least 14 states had passed moratoriums. Trackers count somewhere between $64 and $130 billion in projects blocked or delayed by school boards and county commissions in deep red counties and deep blue ones. In Virginia, an appeals court struck down the rezoning for what would have been the world's largest campus, and the county chose not to appeal. In Tucson, the city council rejected a campus unanimously. Months later, the county next door approved a rewritten version, with a community fund and renewable power guarantees attached. Democracy worked the same lever in opposite directions, and both votes counted. So the honest verdict is not that artificial intelligence is destroying the environment. The record does not show that. The record shows something more specific. An industry building at a speed the permitting system was never designed to check, in towns that were never asked, sending a bill for power, water, and air to people who never signed a contract. The companies say the efficiency gains, the reactors, and the tax checks will justify it. The meters and the court dockets are keeping their own count. So, now, are the voters, one building, outside Memphis, drawing more power than the city around it? Whatever intelligence turns out to be worth, this is what it costs. And for the first time since the boom began, the people paying are doing the math.